Home sellers are growing increasingly frustrated. There's more listings, it's taking longer than ever to sell, and in May, 1 in 5 sellers cut their list price, which is the highest on record as Redfin started tracking for 9 years. So not the best time to sell a home. Despite that, we have some positive news. Purchase applications are up. They're on a 22-week growth streak, so more buyers are getting pre-approved to buy a home. We haven't quite seen that impact, though, the listings. They're still kind of sitting. And so I'm here today. I'm excited today. I'm here with Jeremy and Jake. And Jeremy and Jake are product consultants for Zoodealio. So they're talking with realtors from across the U.S. all day, every day about the offerings and options that we supply through our platform. They're also both market experts. They're both realtors. And so first, let me just give you each a moment to introduce yourself, maybe share a little bit about yourself for our viewers.
Sure. So my name is Jeremy, and I've been with Zoodealio for 3.5 years. I've been a realtor for 4.5 now, I believe. Luckily, I found Zoodealio really quick in my journey. But yeah, so I love real estate. I eat and breathe Zoodealio. So yeah, go ahead.
I'm Jake. I joined up officially with Zoodealio a little over a year ago. I've been in the industry, real estate here in Arizona for about 20 years. This year I got my start first as an appraiser and sort of worked my way through the bubble and got my agent license many years ago, and I'm here now.
Yeah, so what I love is that you both have expertise in the industry. So coming into this and, learning about the offers and talking with our members, we call our Zoodealio realtor members. And, you really bring a lot of, I would say, guidance to the process. So you're really talking with agents. And, as we talk about the state of the housing market, a lot of times our product offerings just make so much sense because of where we're at. So I thought it would be kind of fun to go through maybe some of the use cases that you're seeing on a day in and day out basis, maybe some of the stories that you're hearing from agents about why the offers work or how they could work.
Yeah, some of the latest ones I've been seeing is actually people moving across state lines, which I think is kind of interesting. And another one is like they just want to get rid of their second home, right? So that's another big one.
Oh, interesting. I haven't heard that yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're hearing use cases where maybe they're moving across.
Moving's a big one, definitely across state lines. I mean, I've seen like Florida to Washington or Florida to Wisconsin, just going up north from southern states, which is kind of the opposite of the trend that I've seen before. But then, yeah, getting rid of second homes, that's a big one. And I think maybe it's just because they can be a headache sometimes for people and they need to cash out, get rid of it.
Okay, interesting. So, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but when Jeremy was talking about moving across state lines, the examples you all gave were Florida too.
Yeah.
Florida too.
Yeah, a lot of people moving away from Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, and normally it's like, especially the older generation moving to Florida.
Typically,
Yep.
right?
Or
Okay.
Arizona.
So interesting that you're actually tangibly picking up on that internally.
Yep, I can see that. I see a lot of that.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You as well, Jake. What are you seeing from your end?
So, I mean, we're seeing a lot of, like outward migration from, like Texas and Florida. Florida, I think especially. But I'm seeing it here, like anecdotally, I'm seeing it here in Arizona as well. I mean, my wife and I were talking to a couple that used to live in our neighborhood who, he had interviewed for he's in education, he's a principal, and he interviewed for 20 jobs here locally and couldn't find anything. And he got the first job he applied for in Salt Lake City, they offered him more money, a better position than he could find here after a year of searching. And I think that's happening, regionally, depending on where you're at. I mean, the economy is in a big shift right now. I mean, we see that every day from the real estate side, but from a jobs perspective, from an education standpoint, there is so much happening in the country right now. It's in such a transitional period that, I mean, there's outward migration from states that people have lived in for years, and they're not necessarily basing it on their home value. It's more about, okay, how can we do life? What's the next chapter for us?
Interesting that you mentioned that. I want to talk on that a little bit more. So it is a tough market. And when a seller is ready and they realize that they're in a tough market and maybe they're looking at different options, you mentioned that they're just asking themselves the question, how do we do life at this point?
Right.
And so maybe what are some of the other scenarios that you guys see pretty frequently here at Zoodealio?
I mean, I've seen a lot of divorce, a lot of lot of probate, definitely. You know, and maybe just getting new jobs too. That's a number one, or not number one, but it's definitely a one that's up there. And that brings them to different states too. But yeah, how about you, Jake? Because I've seen it all across the board, honestly.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me most is, I mean, you know, we talk about probate a lot, right? That's one of the scenarios that comes. But I think I've seen what seems disproportionately a lot of cases where you've got a family member who needs to move out of state or move out of their home and move into another home to take care of a loved one who's ill, or, you know, they're having to, you know, travel back and forth between, you know, two different locations, and logistically it's just become, you know, more sensible to consolidate. So we're seeing a lot of that.
I agree. You know, I think that when it comes to considering whether one of these offers or options works for a home seller and you're helping the agent kind of navigate that offer, I'm curious, what are some of the things you find yourself sharing with agents like over and over and over again? Jake kind of laughs.
To be honest, it's funny because a thought popped in my head as soon as you were talking about that.
Yeah,
and when I was
hear
thinking about it, I was like, man, like 98% of the scenarios that Jake and I see, our offer structures work for. But it's all about, like, you know, does it actually work for the seller? Because obviously, you know, there's other things involved in it. But for the most part, at least the numbers work for it. And then obviously, you know, just depending on the seller's situation, if they can actually take it or not, whole nother story. But for the most part, like when I look at all these scenarios, I'm like, these work. They work very well for people. You know, I think some of the things that I repeat a lot are just about the numbers. Actually, like if the first payout works, you can figure it out from there. That's one of my at least that's a thought in my head. It's not like I say exact words like that, but I mean, that is the bottom line with our Cash Plus offer. The first payout has to work, right? So that's definitely my number one thing I go for.
So you're uncovering just initially if the number structure even works.
Yeah, right? I mean, because if it doesn't, then we'll have to figure out another solution.
Yeah, yep, makes sense. Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously that makes sense.
Yep.
I think the topic that comes up a lot for me, especially when I'm speaking with agents who are new to the platform or who I've spoken with and they say, hey, this just doesn't seem to work. These offers just aren't sticking, right? You know, I kind of go back to the basics and say, listen, what is going on with the homeowner, right? Like our jobs as agents are to help the homeowner get from where they're at to where they want to be next. You know, and there's a lot that goes into that. But you know, it comes down to, in terms of these solutions that the cash offer platform provides to a seller, have to do with, I think, 3 areas, right? So there has to be not a manufactured or artificial, like there needs to be a genuine driving need on the seller's behalf to either take control of the timeline. You know, they're looking to purchase certainty in an uncertain market. You know, logistics, like in terms of, well, you know, either the house is just a mess or I'm embarrassed to show, or, you know, maybe I do have that family member who's living with us and I'm providing medical care for them, and that's not really conducive to having people coming in at, you know, 2:00 in the afternoon to show the home for a half hour, right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, the third reason is, you know, ultimately most sellers, in order to fund whatever they're doing next, have to access the equity that they have locked up in their property, right? And, you know, when you don't have all the time in the world, it comes down to, well, am I willing, or does it make sense to pay a premium in exchange for being able to, you know, benefit from one of those 3 things, if not all 3?
One of the greatest feelings ever is when a seller like sees it in their head and you can watch it.
Oh, I get it.
You're like, oh, this makes total sense. And it just fits in their needs. So it's a brilliant thing to see.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm curious because, you know, probably I would say, well, you would know best. I would imagine, though, that a lot of your time is spent educating. So maybe agents that are very new to Zoodealio don't really understand how things work. But then I know that a large chunk of your time is spent actually in the nitty gritty, helping kind of, you know, triage the deal and seeing how we could, you know, potentially help. So what would you say is kind of the composition of working with agents that are just new to Zoodealio, just curious about how the offers work, versus like you're actually helping them figure out the best path forward for that seller?
I'll let you tackle that first.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing I'd say is like the biggest difference is like when you're working with seasoned people that are used to Zoodealio, Their questions are a lot more detailed, and it will be very specific to, either the property or the seller. For me personally, I've seen questions range from does solar work or short sales or, just a wide variety of these questions from our seasoned agents, where it's not totally about the offer itself. It's just the property or the seller's needs or wants. As with new agents that come to Zoodealio, the first thing they need to know is, how do these work, or how does Zoodealio work? What is Zoodealio? And so I get a lot of that. And, I have a webinar daily, right, where I try to teach everybody everything all at once, but it's like fitting so much information into 1 hour. And I've seen agents join my webinar 3-4 days in a row. So I like that I get to spend a lot more time with those nitty gritty details. That's kind of where I sit anyway. I love doing that.
Yeah. And in general, I think agents fall into, one of two camps, right? They're either experienced or they're not experienced, right? And that doesn't necessarily mean experience in the real estate industry, right? Because there's so little of what we ultimately do as agents has to do with houses as it does to people, like managing relationships and expectations, right? It's a people business. And so, the better tuned in an agent is to what the seller actually needs, the more resonant this becomes more quickly, right? The basic structure of these offers is, it's simple, right? It's not necessarily easy to put a deal together because there are a lot of moving parts, but ultimately I really try to focus in before I answer any specific questions. I try to gain as much of an understanding about how much of an understanding the agent has with their specific scenario.
Do you rate them 1 through 10?
I do, and then I tell them, you're a 4, but you're doing better.
Scoring system.
You'll be a 6 by the time we get off this call, right? Because, the more in tune we are to what our clients need, the better we're going to be able to serve them.
Okay, so that brings me to something that both of you are really good at doing, and that's accelerating that trust building process and building relationships. I'm curious, how'd you get there? Is there a piece of advice
Honestly,
or something that's helped
life
you?
experiences is mine. Life experience. I came from an industry of hospitality, so bartending, serving, it was kind of already ingrained in me, right? And then doing this is a little bit different because it's definitely a different ball game, right? But same concept. I still have to be nice, and it's not like I have to be nice. It's more like I want to be nice. Right. So building those relationships comes pretty easy to me, but maintaining them can be a challenge sometimes because obviously, things happen, but I strive to make sure everybody is happy. And so I think it just was always part of who I am, maybe how I was raised. I don't know. It could go all the way back to that.
We could probably unpack that for a long time. For sure.
But life experiences, I think, is really the number one key thing for me. Just realizing that I do better when I'm nice.
And I think most of what Jeremy says is true, but I think it pretty much comes down to his rich baritone.
Yeah.
He has the nicest, most soothing phone voice ever. And people just want to stay on the phone.
Yeah, like my webinar, that's...
It is. If you haven't joined a webinar, it's worth just hearing the voice. Yeah.
Well, everybody tells me I sound like Seth Rogen, too, though, when I laugh, so I don't know.
Chris is like, I feel that.
Yeah. I can't help it. I was blessed with it.
Yeah, but to your point, Jeremy's and my background are similar in that because going through college, I waited tables, I tended bar. I like connecting with people. I like hearing the stories. And, honestly, I think part of building relationships is just the more stories you hear and the more you listen, I think that I've just sort of collected all those.
Yeah, they can apply to other people's stories too. It's
absolutely.
Funny.
Yeah. So you collect stories, and I think as you do that, you learn more about how people work, and it's easier to relate to them.
So what would your advice be to real estate agents right now, navigating these difficult times and bringing different solutions to their homeowners?
Well, 1, don't give up. 2, make friends. That's how you build relationships. You actually get personal and you become friends with people, and that's how you maintain long-term stuff, right? That's obviously every agent's goal is to have a repeat client, and friendships is how that works.
I want to say maybe watch Jerry Maguire.
Show me the money.
Help me help you. Right. And as silly as that is, it's actually been like 25 years since I've seen that movie, but I kind of think about that a lot, right? Like it's the difference between like, you know, in that case, it was like sports agents, but it really comes down to what an agent does, which is to act on someone else's behalf, you know, because you have
Trust.
You have trust, and they're hiring you for your expertise in an area that they have no expertise. And so, that kind of defines your relationship. And I think the more agents sort of keep out of their own way, the quicker they become. But specifically to this platform is, you know, if I'm talking to an agent who is either new to the platform or has just broken into the real estate industry and doesn't know how to get a foothold, the one piece of advice I give them is to incorporate a discussion about these offers into every listing presentation. You know, whether or not it ever becomes a viable or necessary option for the seller. Simply being able to say that, hey, there's more than one way to sell a home these days versus, well, you should pick me because of, you know, I don't know, I'm nicer, I'm more charming than the other three agents that you're about to
Because I have
interview.
Zoodealio.
Right? It really becomes about the options. It's helping sellers know that, listen, you've got option 1, 2, 3, 4, and depending on your circumstances, one of those is going to be best suited to you. I don't know what that is right now. Fill me in on what your story is, what you need to do, and then we'll figure it out.
I love it. There you have it. You need options for today's market more than ever. And here at Zoodealio, that is exactly what we supply you. Thanks for tuning in.